So it's for first-time homebuyers. But what is a first-time homebuyer? So in the context of these programs, first-time homebuyers are someone who has never owned a home ever. Can be someone who has not owned a home in the past 3 years. So maybe you owned a home 8, 10, 15 years ago. As long as you have not owned a home within the last 3 years, you qualify for most first-time homebuyer programs. And the third kind of piece here is these programs do require that this be your primary residence. So this cannot be for like investment homes or second homes or vacation homes. This is for someone who is tired of rent increases. So, someone who's renting, just tired of rents going up each and every day. Someone who is tired of rent going up every year, year after year, with no limit in sight. It is someone who is tired of spending money on rent, knowing that, all that money that they're spending on rent, they have zero chance of getting any of that back. And they are tired of being in a weak position, meaning that they have no control over their overall housing expenses, or they don't even have control of are they going to be in the same place 2 to 3 years from now. Because the truth is the landlord or the property management company can decide to not renew your lease at any point in time. It's also for someone who is looking to stay put in the same area for a pretty good while. Generally speaking, I like to kind of call it the break-even point, which is I usually calculate off of closing costs. But basically, if you're looking to stay somewhere for 16 months, you're usually better off buying. This is also for someone who is looking to, build a home or put down roots, looking to build and settle themselves into a community. It also allows you to build equity and gives you flexibility long term to leverage the equity and appreciation in a house into college funds, business ventures, second homes, etc. And this also gives you the opportunity to fix your housing expenses as much as you possibly can for the foreseeable future. The one key advantage that everyone kind of misses is when you buy a house with a 30-year fixed mortgage, you are locking in your housing expense pretty much for the next 30 years. And the question is, do you think that rents are going to stay where they're at for 30 years? Absolutely not. This is also for someone who's looking for a little bit of help. Someone who is, having a little trouble putting the down payment together, but they have income, they do have some savings, and their credit is pretty good. We'll get into some of the savings and down payment percentages and stuff like that a little bit later on. Now, who is this not for? It is not for someone who is only planning on being in an area short term. If you're only planning on being in a location for a year, maybe 2 years, definitely 6 months. If you're only planning on being in some place for 6 months to a year, you're usually better off renting. And there's the 1-year rental terms. So who are we to put this on? Well, this is Ashler Home Team. My name is Kyle Sasser. I am the founder of Ashler Home Team. And at Ashler Home Team, we look to show you the way that real estate should be. So my name is Kyle Sasser. I'm obviously a realtor, also a long-standing entrepreneur. I have been partners in or run my own businesses since I was 18. I also have a outstanding wife who definitely keeps me motivated and helps me keep putting one foot in front of the other. I I have two dogs, a chocolate Pomeranian and a little Chihuahua. Not a bitey one, he's actually very friendly. I'm also an avid golfer, and I love exploring cities and areas, exploring new neighborhoods. Whenever we go on vacations, I go to open houses in other sections of the country, and I am a lifelong learner. I never stop learning or exploring or basically looking to put together new things to help people. So the other thing, so how do we live up to the way real estate should be? Obviously, I can sit here on this video and I'm not going to go into all the stuff that we do because that's not why you're here. The best way for me to show you, the best way for you to learn the way real estate should be is to show you. And so, this video is part of it, but a lot of the follow-up and the way that we go about real estate lives up to the way real estate should be. The core principle, though, is honest communication. So at the end of the day, we always provide you with 100% honest communication. We do not try to hide anything. We do not try to sugarcoat anything. Sometimes that does mean that there will be some difficult conversations because, truth and reality and expectations do not always line up. So sometimes we need to have a conversation about that, but that comes with the honesty. But that is where the honesty comes from. And integrity, which is one of our core principles, is the application of honesty over consistent is. And integrity is one of our core principles, and it is honesty consistently applied over time. The other way that we live up to the way real estate should be is we see ourselves more as your guide, tour guide, trail guide in the case of this image. And we view our role as to be, think of like Gandalf or I forget the trainer's name in Rocky, but him. Our goal is to help you and advise you with our expertise and overall perspective so that you can follow your path and make your best home buying decision. So we always see ourselves as the guide. That is why we always give honest communication. And we do not see ourselves as the hero. And this is a little conflicting with most of the training in the real estate industry. Unfortunately, it's something that I have a huge problem with in the industry. So if you go to any sort of realtor training, if you just go to Google and type in realtor sales training, most of the sales training is about this, overcoming objections. And whenever you start talking about overcoming objections, it basically starts to feel like all of these characters. So, slimy salesperson, overly friendly huckster, somebody promising to tell you the truth, and all that stuff. We do not follow the mantra of overcoming objections. We do believe in providing you with truthful and honest perspective, which allows you to make the best decision. But overcoming objections is something like, for instance, if you say, well, I'm not really thinking about buying right now. The overcoming objections part is you start getting hammered with questions about, well, what's keeping you from buying right now? Who else is making this decision? Why can't you decide right now? Like all of that stuff. It makes the whole process combative and not helpful. And quite frankly, it is not the way real estate should be. So we do not do it. It's also kind of like basically going to a restaurant and your waiter trying to convince you that your pastry is perfectly prepared and exquisite when what you really asked for is a hamburger. I don't know why all the sales training is about overcoming objections and not providing superior service and expertise. Take it for what you will. So let's dive into the first-time buyer programs. How do first-time homebuyer programs work? Basically, first-time homebuyer. So first-time homebuyer programs are accelerants or launch pads to launch people into home ownership. Home ownership is something that cities, counties, states prefer. It has a lot of positive benefits, both short-term and long-term. So neighborhoods with a higher percentage of home ownership tend to be maintained to a higher or better level than those with a high percentage of renters. Not always the case, but there's a lot of positive benefits. People take a little bit more ownership in their immediate area around them. Homes get a little bit better maintained, coats of paint go up a little bit more regularly, etc., etc. So the cities and counties are incentivized to help people buy houses. Typically, these are set up as, they can be grants, which are essentially gifts. Sometimes they have a expiration or repayment plan. Sometimes they are set up as loans or second mortgages. And sometimes those loans and mortgages can be set up where they are forgiven at a certain point in time. They can also be set up where the payments are paused for a certain period of time. So say, there is a second mortgage, but no payment is ever due. And they can also be 0% interest, which obviously, is very, very nice. One note on the forgiven ones is sometimes they will require payment to be made. Sometimes, again, those payments are deferred until the end of the program. So there's a lot of variables and differences in how these programs effectively get set up. So how much money are we talking about here? Like, what do the actual numbers look like? So we talked about, that $1,700 out of the buyer's pocket, and we had that loan from the bond program there. And also, if you hear like bond program or first-time buyer programs, those are all kind of interchangeable, kind of the same name for different things, basically. So typically, I see between $6,000 and kind of best case scenario is $60,000. Now, there's a lot that goes into getting that $60,000. It is not just hey, here's a check for $60,000. You're usually having to use multiple programs to get to that point. The more realistic and common numbers are $6,000 to about $20,000 or $15,000. And the cool thing is, this is now the thing is, this particular so obviously the 6 to 60,000. If you can get the 60,000, that is the much better way to go about it. But even the $6,000 to $20,000 is fully within what I see as down payments to purchase homes. Like, this is what most first-time home buyers put down to purchase a home. And it doesn't matter if they're using this program or if they have just saved that up. It is usually somewhere in this range. How can that be? Well, everyone always thinks that you need 20% down to purchase a home. You do not. Conventional loans technically go all the way down to 0%. There's obviously very strict requirements on getting down to 0%. Primarily, you have to be a doctor, dentist, or something of that nature. 2 to 5% is very typical. Everyone also, a lot of times, will think that you have to have a FHA loan or a VA loan to get to this lower down payment part. That is not true. Conventional loans go down to 2% to 5%. Now, I know those of you that have been doing some reading, yes, this does mean that there will be mortgage insurance. You are still better off buying a house than renting. I promise you. Although I'm not going over that math in this video, I will go over it in another video. So what are the requirements of the first-time homebuyer programs? Well, again, you have to have either never owned a home or have not owned a home within the last 3 years. And the home has to be for your primary residence. There are specialty programs. If you are first responders, military, teachers, if you're government, if you work for a nonprofit, there can be additional programs that get stacked up on top of that. Those are usually a little bit more trickier because they are a lot higher demand, which we'll touch on a little bit later. And again, this is not for anyone looking to buy a home to use it as an investment property, a vacation home, Airbnbs, or if you're trying to buy a house for a family member. This is not this is not the way to go about doing that. So one of the main requirements is you are going to have to be paired with a program counselor. So this is someone that is a representative of the program. Usually they are a city or county government worker, and they have expertise in this program, and they usually have all of the details for, what the various incentives are for the different areas. Can this be stacked? Can it not be stacked? Etc., etc. This is not a one and done sort of thing. You're going to be talking to this person a lot. So it's important that you build a very friendly relationship with them, and stay on their good side. Don't get too irritable. Next requirement is you're almost certainly going to have to attend some form of homeowner class. Sometimes this is in person. A lot of times it's just a online thing that you have to sit through, answer some questions just to show. It's nothing crazy. They don't really give you homework, but it's basically just telling you about the differences between home ownership and rentals, what you're going to be responsible for. That, if you've never owned a home, you maybe not know that, hey, you do need to pay property taxes. The roof's going to need replacing at some point in time, etc., etc. The program counselor will give you the details on these particular programs. These programs are also not a substitute for a mortgage. They are a supplement to the mortgage. So you do still need to be able to qualify for a primary or first position mortgage. So you need to make sure that your debt to income is in the right area. So you need to also have a lender that can give you this pre-approval. And, basically all of us, so basically all of us, the real estate agent, well, let me get to that. So as you can see, there's starting to be quite a number of moving parts here. I don't want you to get discouraged because, again, this is something that is entirely doable. And it is not even overly difficult. It is just something that you literally just have to do one foot in front of the other, move down the path. What's the next two things we need to do? Okay, let's do those, and then basically you roll, and eventually you're buying a house with a first-time homebuyer program. Most of these programs are also means tested, meaning, no pun intended, that basically they do look at your income, and typically you do need to be some percentage of the neighborhood median income. Now, whenever I tell people this, a lot of times they're just like, oh, well, that just means it's impossible. It does not mean it's impossible. Some neighborhoods are, you need to be under the median home value. Typically that is going to be in luxury neighborhoods. And most of the other neighborhoods, you can be above the median income. And so one of the reasons you have that program counselor is they help guide you through the different neighborhoods and where your median income is at and what your budget you want to keep it at. And you have to kind of work through all this stuff to find the areas that are going to work for you for your first-time homebuyer program. The good news is everywhere I have seen, there are good neighborhoods that fit the first-time homebuyer programs, but you do have to work through the process. Now, what are the quirks of this program? Well, you need experts. So obviously, that's my big head there in the middle. But all these other people, very critical to the process. So we have mortgage lenders here. This is the title company and background check. We do have the program counselor who you met earlier. So the lender needs to know about first-time homebuyer programs. You cannot just go to a bank and have the loan officer there do it. It is critical that they have in-depth knowledge of how these programs work. You also need an expert inspector because usually as a requirement of these programs, the home does have to pass inspection, and the city does actually review those inspections to make sure that the house is up to scratch. And then obviously you need a real estate agent that is also familiar with these items. So there's our friendly program counselor again. And again, they're a quirk. The quirky part is each city, township, county, each one of those has their own first-time homebuyer program. So unfortunately, if you cross the city lines, you will need to be speaking with a different program coordinator. So it is important, and this is where the real estate agent comes in. It is critical for you to work to know where you're going to be looking, because it takes way too much time to try to get qualified for all these different programs and then pick. So so you're kind of rolling a few things at once here. So yeah, so it is very location dependent. I guess I should have popped that slide a little bit earlier. They are stackable. Not all of them, but sometimes you can stack up, say, so the city one, and then you can sometimes layer like a county program, or say, the Hometown Heroes, where if you're a paramedic or firefighter, sometimes you can have multiples of these programs. But again, a lot of variables there. You kind of have to work the process and see what is and is not doable in your specific circumstance. There's some other kind of quirks to this. It does take longer to buy a house this way. You generally have to give, I know that says 40 to 60 days, but it's, in my experience, it's a little bit more like 50 to 60 days. A regular contract, I usually write for 30 to 40 days. That's plenty of time for the lender to get underwriting done. In this case, we have to do all the regular stuff of a just regular conventional or FHA or VA loan. We have to do all that stuff, but then we also have to have the city check it. And as you know, city and government offices are not always free to look at our file as soon as it becomes available to be looked at. So we do have to budget a little bit longer time. So if you have to move somewhere in short order, first-time homebuyer programs are probably not going to be the right fit. This does also involve another third party, and they are a decision maker, because the program director or your counselor or someone at the city is going to be reviewing this and either approving it or not approving it. And a lot of times we won't know that final approval until late in the contract. And these are also pretty inflexible. So now, currently, as a first-time homebuyer, this all sounds really great. Who wouldn't like $60,000? The problem is 10, 15 years from now, if you decide to make a change in your life, maybe you want to move to a bigger house, maybe you want to move to a different state, maybe you want to rent out this house. All of those things, these programs usually require you to pay off this second loan or grant in full at that point in time. So they're a little inflexible if you try to do some of the more creative things later on. But as long as you're planning on sticking to that as your primary residence, these are amazing programs. And honestly, getting your foot in the door and becoming a homeowner opens up a lot of doors down the road. And even if you have to pay off these grants 10 to 15 years in the future, a lot of times you will have the equity or other means by that point to pay this off, and it's not as big of a hit as it sounds. But it is important to know that it has to be your primary residence. You cannot rent it out. And if you do rent it out, you do have to pay all this stuff back. Some of the other catches are a lot of these programs do have limited funds. I did mention the Hometown Heroes program. That one is notoriously underfunded. Just everybody and their cousin is trying to get Hometown Heroes, and so literally I think they run out of funds. So basically funds become available each and every month. I think by halfway through the first of the month they're out of funds. So some of these are problematic, but usually the city and county ones are usually a bit more well funded, or at least a little bit more streamlined. And so I haven't really had any problems with the city or county programs with funds being available. Again, we have that third party, so the home has to pass the inspection condition. So if we're looking at like fixer-uppers and stuff like that, those aren't quite the best choice for first-time homebuyer programs. That will definitely get bounced out of the inspection. And again, we have the availability here. Inventory is pretty tight, so there's not as many suitable homes as there were, say, 2, 3, 4 years ago. But again, I do want to clarify that I do have multiple clients that have closed first-time homebuyer programs in the last couple months. And another quirk of these is, and another quirk of first-time homebuyer programs is, again, they take longer, but there's no set limit. It's basically the city's timeline. I had one earlier this year where it was basically, we would contact the city. They said, we haven't had a chance to look at your file. You're number 2 in line. We called them for 2 to 3 weeks. Every answer was, you're number 2 in line, you're number 2 in line for 2 to 3 weeks. Come to find out, the person that actually reviews the files was on vacation for a week and a half, and they didn't relay that to us. It was basically just, we'll get to it when we get to it. So that can cause problems with your contract. So that's why it's important to have a good realtor that's able to communicate and explain this to the listing agent. But there's 9 times out of 10, it will close in that 40 to 60 day window, but it could go longer. That also kind of ties into our, the city just sometimes gets backed up. They can't get to, the file in any particular or specific time. And the other kind of quirky thing is the amounts are variable, and you trying to accurately plan the exact contribution that the city or county first-time homebuyer programs will be giving is very hard to know. They can give you rough ballparks. And again, basically the process is you communicating with the realtor, the lender, and the first-time buyer program, and the first-time home buyer counselor. And all of you basically refine things as you move along. You're not going to have an exact number on week 1 of the contract, but you want to know that you're within the right range when it comes closing day. The other thing is these are also highly variable depending upon, hey, the other thing is these are also highly variable depending upon location. Cities and counties offer different amounts, and a lot of times even different neighborhoods within cities. The city wants to incentivize improvements in certain sections, so they will offer more assistance in some areas than others. So again, there's a lot of variables with first-time homebuyer programs. You have to work through each step as it comes, and it's basically just a sequence of like a 1,000 little decisions, and then eventually you're buying a home. So let's talk about my client's story. So let's talk about my client's story. So my client's names were Brandon. So let's talk about my client's story. So my clients were Brandon and Maya. They were whenever they first called me, we had the conversation. They were first-time home buyers. They were saving up for their down payment, but they were discouraged because they felt that they were wasting money on rent. And while they were saving, home prices were running away from them, which, that's a pretty fair assessment. Their concerns were the initial cash outlays, so they wanted to keep the down payment low. They definitely wanted to stop paying rent. That's every time I talked to them, that's what they came back to. They're like, tired of paying rent. It's going to take us like months to a year to save up. And they were looking to get settled and not have to really worry about the landlord pulling the rug out from under them. And they were looking to get settled. They were tired of worrying about, next year, how much is the rent going up? Is the landlord going to pull the rug out from us? Is someone else going to come along and buy the fourplex that they were in? Is someone going to buy it and the new owner not renew the lease, and they're going to have to move out anyway? So they were looking to get all that solidified. Over the course of conversations, I had mentioned first-time homebuyer programs to them initially, and they were just like, well, we're gonna keep saving, we'll keep plugging away at this, and I just kept mentioning, hey, just give the first-time buyer counselor a call, see what they say. Finally, they did, and they were excited because they qualified for the first-time homebuyer programs, and they were ready to get going. So we started looking around at houses, condos, townhomes, everything. They were definitely leaning more towards the townhome or condo lifestyle because they weren't really interested in doing all the yard work. They were both pretty active career-wise, but So obviously, if we would have found like a waterfront house for them, they would have been thrilled. But they were looking more for like the the condo or the townhome lifestyle. Also, as a little bit of an architectural note, this house is actually pretty interesting because it looks very new, but it does have the 1950s breeze block over here, which is pretty cool. I actually like that. So they were looking for condos. Condos are not necessarily easier, although they are usually a little bit less money than houses. Now, downsides of the condos, there's way more rules. Not just obviously the condo association having rules on, rentals and all that stuff, but there's a lot of rules when it comes to loans for condos, especially nowadays. There's a lot of requirements. There's a lot of reserves. The financial health of the condo is also taken into account. So there's a lot of things that need to be just so for condos to work right. Benefit is condos are more affordable. Generally speaking, a condo at a certain price is going to have a much superior lifestyle to a single family home at that same price. And the reason for that is very simple, is because you're sharing the cost of the pool, the community center, the maintenance, the yard, the landscaping and all that stuff. You're sharing all of that with a lot of additional people, meaning that you can generally have better amenities for a lot less money than if you were trying to maintain a pool and a gym and a pool table and a pool hall and a bar and all of that on your own. But it does require a lot more legwork. Some on you as the home buyer, but also on the lender and the real estate agent, because I have to try to get all of these condo docs for you and for the lender. The lender has to go through, they have to double check the reserves, how the condo is set up, is there a right of first refusal, are they FHA or VA qualified? Side note, most condos are not. There's a few, and they're on the list, but they're, FHA and VA loans does not work much for condos. But with this, it was not an insurmountable problem. The lender that we were working with was very confident, and eventually we found a great fit for them. So here we are back at the borrower statement. So again, we have the $1,700. So the purchase price was $170,000. They put down $1,700 as their deposit or earnest money. That gets applied towards the balance at closing. So basically they put down 1% is their cash out of pocket. Now there is inspections. There's not something that shows up on the closing statement here. The inspection was, I believe, $450 on this one, $450 on this one. So we're right around, if we're talking like total cash out of pocket with the inspector, everything, we're at $2,000. But honestly, on a typical transaction, the inspection does not count in the borrower statement. It doesn't show up because that is always paid by the buyer directly. So we have our $1,700 here. Purchase price was $170. There's a bunch of fees here for cross-country mortgage, of course, and then we have the this is the title charges, just kind of closing costs so far as recordings. You have to get documents from the condo called an estoppel, and all that stuff. We have our recording fees. Here's our HOA fee for July. Miscellaneous charges, which are debits from, so this is prepaid for the homeowner's insurance. And then this transfer. Hey. And this transfer from seconds. So sometimes transfer from second, this is what the title company has put on there to note that this is from a secondary source. So sometimes it'll say, bond program, sometimes it'll say second mortgage, sometimes it'll say Bijou, hush. Sometimes it'll say, first-time homebuyer programs. That's basically the title company's discretion for what they want to put in there. Nevertheless, this is $11,913 from the first-time homebuyer program that increased with their $1,700 enough to enable them to purchase this condo. And they're thrilled. Now, next story I'd like to go over here with you is how these stack up. Now, this is Esther and Keegan. This is another first-time homebuyer client of mine. And again, we have the red arrows here indicating what these items are. So the setup's a little different though. So Brandon and Maya's, their goal was keeping the down payment low. Esther and Keegan, they did have a little bit more savings. So what they were trying to do is they were trying to maximize the amount of programs that they were able to obtain. My understanding was one of these programs did require this higher level of down payment, But at the end of the day, they ended up with a lot more assistance and equity in the house. So here we go. We have a $2,500 security deposit. We have subordinate financing. So this would be the county program. So this is going to be $57,600. We have the bond proceeds, which again, remember, that's kind of interchangeable with the second that was on the previous closing statement. First time buyer program, bond program, those are all kind of interchangeable terms. $12,000 from that. And then over here, this is due from borrower. So this is the cash to close. So at the start of the contract, they put down $2,500 as their earnest money. And then on closing day, they had to wire $16,154. So their total out of pocket here is $18,654.38. Let's dive a little bit more into this. If we look at the first time assistance, which is these two sections here, not this 1,390, that's a title insurance credit. So we have 57,600 and 12,000. So far as first time buyer assistance programs, they received $69,600, which, I don't know, maybe I should update that $6,000 to $60,000 initial estimate, because that's definitely a lot more than that. So yeah, so they were able to get $69,600 in total assistance. Now, I do have to kind of explain the county program on this one. So it was set up as a second loan. It was $57,600 of assistance. That was a 0% interest loan. They do have to make monthly payments on that for 15 years, but at the end of 15 years, they forgive the other half of the mortgage. So basically, if they live in this house for 15 years, the county will have just given them $28,800. And that's not to mention the utility of a 0% interest loan with the 15-year term. That is ridiculously generous. So effectively, they were able to purchase a $277,206 home for $236,000. So effectively, they were able to purchase a $277,206 home for $236,406. And we'll break down into this a little bit more. So we have a sales price was $263,000, closing costs were $14,206. That's how we got to this $277,206 number. Total buyer out of pocket was $18,654. Their total assistance they received was $69,600. And then with that forgiveness and the city program, that comes out to $40,800 of forgiven assistance if they stay in this home for the term of those first-time buyer programs. That is phenomenal. So again, first-time home buyer programs, there's a lot of variables. You really have to work with experts on it. You can't just call up any lender or real estate agent and have a lot of success with trying to work through these programs. You need people that are familiar with it and willing to put in the time with you. So again, part of the way real estate should be, we always put that time and effort in with each and every client. These first-time homebuyer programs, they are basically a supplement to the down payment, and they basically are designed to launch you much sooner than if you were trying to save up this money for yourself. Can be significant, they can be stackable, but again, there are so many variables with location, neighborhood, income requirements. There's so many variables that you really have to work through the process one step at a time here. So how do you find these programs? Well, you can poke around yourself. You can definitely do some Google search. These are usually buried under a number of county and city websites. They can be very difficult to find. You're also going to have to try to decipher through all of these programs and requirements, what is and isn't possible and feasible. And it's doable. I'm not going to lie to you. It's definitely something that you can do, but it's going to take up a lot of time and effort. Second way you can find these programs is you can try to find the right agent. Most agents have not done a first-time buyer program, so far as like the bond or the contribution or anything like that. But they're out there, so you can ask around, do some Google searching again, just to find who out there is going to be a good fit for you. Then you can call them, interview them, see if you gel with them, see if you like what they're saying, see if they're even knowledgeable on the topic. Because I can tell you, at this point, you know more than most agents do about first-time buyer programs. The easiest thing is you can talk to me. So there will be a link down below. You can set up a phone call or shoot me an email. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the first-time buyer program. I have closed multiple first-time buyer programs. I also have the patience and expertise to explain to you much of the nuance about the programs and what is and is not possible. So if you'd like to speak to me, again, there's going to be a link down below or over to the side, depending upon where you're watching this at. So what's the squeeze? What's the juice for the squeeze? Well, you can schedule that chat with me, like I said. I keep it very nonchalant. We don't do hard, high-pressure sales or anything like that. We have a conversation. We answer your questions. We explain what kind of the next steps are, what the overall process are. If you have any specific questions, we are happy to help you out. We are very well equipped to recommend you lenders that are familiar with first-time buyer programs. And we can even send you links and contact information for the various first-time home buyer programs in your area. Now, what would a class or seminar be without some bonuses or guarantee if you work with me? Well, so the coolest thing that... So one of the coolest things we have done is we have actually created a customer portal. I can't tell you how many times I've had clients reach out to me from 8, 9, 10 years ago, and they're like, Kyle, do you still have a copy of our survey? Yes, I do. I keep everything. But, I have to dig through all of my emails to find that survey from 2015 and email it to you. So I decided to create a customer portal. So what this is your private corner where you will have all of the information that is relevant to you. So if you are looking to purchase a house, it is going to have, your pre-approval letters. It's going to have statistics and reports that you will be able to look, with our monthly report as well as neighborhood reports, depending upon where you're looking at. It's going to have exclusive videos on the home buying and home selling process. We're actually in the process of putting together a whole course on, buying a home. And it's going to have your critical documents. So whenever you find the right house, once you go under contract, your contract's going to be there. Your, any addendums are going to be there. The survey will go there. The inspection goes up there. What we're really trying to do is we're trying to become that one spot where your entire real estate decisions are based. And if you're ever like, oh, I need that document, you will know exactly where to go. The other guarantee I can give you is that I will try to answer any question that you have. Sometimes I don't know the answer, in which case I either do the research to get the answer or I refer you to someone who is much better equipped. A lot of times that's going to be specific mortgage questions on rates and income and stuff like that. My expertise is project management and the overall real estate process, neighborhoods, negotiation, and contracts. Lenders are best equipped for questions about interest rate, debt to income, does this income qualify, W-2, 1099, that sort of stuff. I can also guarantee you that you'll be treated with absolute honesty and integrity. That is something that I do not compromise on, and even the vendors that I recommend, the lenders I recommend, the title companies I recommend, I hold them to that same standard, and I have fired multiple lenders especially. I have fired many of them that do not live up to that. Customer service And professionalism and utmost honesty is basically the foundation upon which everything that we do is built. Now, so far as kind of illustrating the way real estate should be, is admittedly real estate agents get a little bit of a bad rap. If you know, the stereotype is that we gloss over obvious problems or potential problems to try to close the sale. To counteract that and to kind of reinforce that utmost honesty, whenever we give information to a home buyer that makes them decide to not buy the property, we actually celebrate that internally on our team meetings. We actually try to acknowledge and reward that we have lived up to that. Because obviously, yes, a deal, because yes, obviously, a transaction not closing is a bit of a bummer. You know, we've put a lot of work into it. We've done a lot of paperwork, usually lots of inspections. And, you know, to get to the point where a home buyer decides not to buy, there's also usually some tense moments there. So it's critical for us to acknowledge that we have done the right thing and that we are living up to the way real estate should be by acknowledging that on our team meetings. So we do that so a little bit different than most other agents do, but that is definitely something that we try to stick to. You can also cancel at any time. If you get halfway through this process, you're like, this is just too much, or, you know, hey, sorry, I'm not looking in an area that you're active anymore. You can cancel this process at any time. I promise I don't take it personally. I probably will still keep in contact with you because that's what I do. But again, it's not high pressure sales. I'm not calling you 6 times a day asking if you're ready to buy. It's a conversation. We're helping you out. We're guiding you through your homemaking decisions to hopefully the end result of you finding an outstanding house and purchasing it and then living in it and enjoying it for many years. However, we do only have limited capacity. So currently we can really only, oh, man. So currently we do have limited capacity though. We can handle about 5 clients a month right now. That might not sound like a lot, but again, we put all of our heart and soul into trying to help you realize your home purchasing goal. Now, obviously, we have more than 5 people that are, you know, in our contact list that we're reaching out to. 5 is really the limit of people that are actively in process. So if you would like to be one of the 5 people that we are helping this month navigate these first-time homebuyer programs and looking at homes, again, contact information, you can schedule a call with the link down below. You can also shoot me an email, Kyle, Kyle, at ashlerre.com, and be happy to help you out. And the reason we can really only dedicate to 5 is because we do give you that personal and extremely focused attention. It's looking at houses, everyone thinks that it's just, you know, open the door, this is the kitchen, this is the living room. There's a lot of work and conversations that go up front that makes the rest of the process run extremely smoothly. So, most of the work is in the prep, as with most things. So yeah, so please, if you're interested in moving forward with So please, if you are interested in moving forward with the purchase of a home, if you want to explore first-time buyer programs, please book a call. Like I said, very low stress. It's just a conversation, just answering questions back and forth, usually a few email follow-ups as well. The process is not nerve-wracking. We try to keep the entire process as straightforward and stress-free as it possibly can. And again, the honest communication part is the most effective way to make that happen. So don't sit idle. If this is something you've been kind of kicking around in the back of your mind for the last, 2-3 months or 2-3 years or 20-30 years, Don't sit around. I'll be happy to talk with you. Follow that link below, book the call, and be happy to have a conversation with you. Want to end this on some frequently asked questions here. So one of the most common questions I get is this only for certain people? Usually meaning, is it only for poor people? Is it only for this, is it only for this demographic? The answer is no. Main reason why is the Fair Housing Act. If the Fair Housing Act and the Fair Lending Act, if there is any preference or discrimination based upon, protected classes such as sex, race, country of origin, religion, color, if there's any sort of discrimination or imbalance in that, you will get sued. So first-time homebuyer programs are for everyone, as long as you meet the income requirements. Income requirements are not a protected class, unfortunately. The next question I get is this only for certain neighborhoods? And the answer to that is no. First-time homebuyer programs will apply to most neighborhoods. Now, the amount will differ. Sometimes it'll be a little bit more. Sometimes it'll be a little bit less. But by and large, first-time homebuyer programs apply to all neighborhoods. The difficulty is obviously once you get up into the luxury areas, the problem, of course, is once you get up into the luxury neighborhoods, $30,000 is not going to be enough to cover the down payment. So there is some of that going on. But I have seen people successfully purchase homes and condos in luxury neighborhoods. So again, it's a process. You kind of have to work through everything. First-time homebuyer programs do tend to have more money or offer more incentives in neighborhoods that the city is trying to revitalize. This is just one of the levers they have to improve the city. But here's the thing, take advantage of it. If the city is pumping that much money into a particular area, home values there are going to go up. And I know that just talking with people, a lot of people have been, crying out, never be able to buy a house, never be able to afford everything. This is literally the help that you have been asking for. So, if you don't investigate this stuff, you only have yourself to blame, really. One of the other things I usually get is this can't possibly be true. I literally had a conversation with someone where I literally refuted with proof and balance statements everything that they said. They still didn't believe that it was possible. They thought I was just making it up whole cloth, which I wish that I had that much time on my hands, but I don't. So, and the rug here is the rug pull, because a lot of times whenever I'm talking about this, people are like, there has to be another shoe that's going to drop. The rug's going to be pulled out from under me at some point in time. Most people will qualify for some sort of assistance if you, but it just kind of depends, right? But it's a process. You have to go through it. You have to see what works and what will not work for your specific situation. But there is something for almost everyone out there, including if you even already own your home. There are other programs out there that are, so for example, MMCT loans are 0% down, no mortgage insurance, but they have a very specific geographic requirement. So at this point in time, you probably feel like you're kind of wading through the morass here. And again, our role is to help guide you through this process. And just like this photo, you can't see the final destination. And honestly, even I can't see where the final destination is going to be for you, what kind of house you're going to end up in. But there is the path there, and as long as you follow the path, it will lead you to where you want to be. You just have to go through the process. That is the mantra for this video. If you want first-time homebuyer assistance and you want to buy a house, you have to take these steps, even though you don't exactly know where you're going to end up at. And full transparency, this is a very scary proposition, but it is how the real estate process works. And honestly, even people who are just buying a home conventionally, they still don't have complete certainty. So don't think that there's some other place where the sun's shining and you can clearly see, the castle on the hill in the background. But end of the day, if you keep putting one foot in front of the other, you will end up in a beautiful home that you will enjoy living in and for many years to come. So again, if you would like to get started, best first step is usually to book that phone call so we can have a conversation. You can have all of your questions answered that I didn't answer in this video at that point in time. And don't feel that it's going to be a short thing with me trying to get you off the phone. Usually calls can be 10 to 15 minutes if it's something relatively straightforward. I have spent an hour and a half on the phone with buyers. Just every buyer is a little bit different. Everybody has a little bit different questions. So schedule that call. I'll be happy to talk with you. And my name's Kyle Sasser. Would love to help you out. Would love to show you the way real estate should be. You can reach me at kyle@ashlerre.com, 727-300-2111 if you'd like to give me a call also. And thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon.